Certain mornings possess a serene stillness that sets them apart from the rest. This one possessed a unique tranquility, the sort that transcends mere presence outside the windows and nestles itself deep within your heart. Hours prior, my husband had departed for the city, unchanged as ever. Fleeting kiss brushed against the cheek. There was an absence of eye contact. There is no farewell, and then there was silence. As I nestled into the corner of our cream velvet couch, wrapped in the soft embrace of my satin robe, I found solace in the living room's quietude. Coffee had long since turned cold in my grasp. The house stood immaculate, devoid of color, a spacecraft to captivate rather than to inhabit. Yet in that moment I caught wind of it, the gentle drone of a mower. Turned, and there he stood, Marco, leaning over the flower bed, the fabric adhered to his chin. The morning sun glinted off his hair, concentrated purpose so strikingly lovely that it seems almost inappropriate for such an ordinary. First he kept his gaze downcast. He never did. He toiled as if the gaze of the world was absent. Yet on that particular morning I found myself doing just that, and then he followed suit. Our home boasts expansive windows from the ground to the sky, conceived by a Swedish architect with a passion for transparency. My husband often quipped that it gave the house a more spacious feel. Yet that morning the vastness seemed profoundly personal, revealed. Adjusted my position on the couch, folding my legs gracefully. Our gazes intertwined across the transparent barrier. It endured for but a fleeting second, perhaps a couple. Yet it altered something. I averted my gaze, my heart pounding in my chest. My cheeks felt flushed with warmth. It had been years since I experienced such a feeling. Reassured myself that it was insignificant. He was in the bloom of youth, perhaps 30 at the very most. Most likely had a girlfriend, or perhaps a few. What about me? Had reached the age of 59, unseen on the majority of. Yet that evening I found myself captivated by my reflection, spending more time in front of the mirror than I typically would. I gently swept my hair aside, apply the lotion, select a robe adorned with a touch of lace, perhaps some whimsical notions. Yet they found themselves drawn to the act of remembrance, as if emerging from lumber. By 7:30 the following morning, I found myself already settled in the living room. The curtains are pulled. Freshly brewed coffee, the robe draped just shy of modesty, and just as expected he made his entrance for once. It was he who caught sight of me first. He maintained his gaze. I did not either. I feigned engagement with the pages before me. He feigned the act of weeding, yet an unspoken understanding lingered between us. A new chapter had begun. It is not a dialogue, not a single word, merely a thread. Slender, mute, yet undeniably powerful. As I savored my coffee, a thought crossed my mind. He is merely the gardener, and I merely a woman encased in glass. Why does it seem as though he is the sole person who has truly recognized my existence in ages? He approached with intent the following day, not in a single moment, in no manner that would have caught the attention of another. Yet I did. In a departure from his usual routine of beginning at the yard's edge, Marco chose to start his trimming near the side of the house, right by the windows near my side. Found myself there once more, clutching the familiar coffee draped in the same robe, and now a notebook resting in my lap, untouched by my pen. I feigned the act of scribbling down recipes. In reality my quill remained still. Initially I believed it to be mere chance. He then made his way to the patio hedge, positioned directly opposite the living room. He rose to his feet, gazed upward, and smiled. It was diminutive, almost non-existent, a smile that holds secrets, inviting curiosity with a challenge to uncover its mysteries. Refrained from returning the smile. Was unable to. Yet I remained steadfast, my gaze unwavering. On that night, visions of rain danced through my dreams, not from him, simply standing barefoot on the cool tile floor as the rain poured outside. The house exuded a chill in the dream, yet paradoxically, it also embraced a warmth. I awoke, gasping for air. The following morning, I adorned my lips with lipstick. Mere whisper of color, a gentle touch, subtle, yet present. I never convinced myself it was meant for anyone but me. As I strolled by the mirror, I couldn't help but glance back, checking twice. He stood in the backyard as I pulled the curtains aside. On this occasion he offered a wave, and I returned the gesture with a wave, merely a delicate dance of fingertips, nothing further. Yet it resonated as a revelation. As the clock struck noon, I ventured outside, merely to retrieve the mail. Yet I remained, fining an inspection of the plants by the porch. He was present, nearer than he had ever approached. "Good morning," he remarked. His voice resonated with a depth I hadn't anticipated. Cozy, unhurried. There is a complete lack of urgency in the matter. I inclined my head in agreement. It appears the lavender is flourishing beautifully. He offered another smile. It invariably thrives when someone takes notice. Words eluded me in that moment. I chose to remain silent, began to look away. Yet he had one final thought. "Sure. This morning you appeared transformed." I hesitated. "In what way is it different?" As if one is unfamiliar with the experience of being noticed. Yet there is a growing fondness for it. My breath hitched in my throat. Yet I chose not to correct him. I did not quicken my pace. I ambled along at a leisurely pace, intentionally returned to the dwelling, returned to the stillness, returned to the window. That place I observed him as he toiled and lingered, for not for all things. The future he would draw nearer, would opt to remain steadfast, refusing take a step back. On a Tuesday the world unfolded in its usual rhythm. Late spring morning that teases with the promise of summer, warm yet light, bright without overwhelming glare. With a peach cradled in one hand and a linen robe gracefully cascading over my night gown, I found myself adrift with no destination in sight. The sound of the gate creaking open reached my ears. Not the front gate, the side one, the one that meanders past the hydrangeas and into the narrow path that winds beneath the kitchen window. I was certain it was. Failed to verify. I set the peach gently in a bowl, cleaned my hands with care, and cracked the window open just a fraction. The stillness was anything but uncomfortable. It was dense, as if it possessed form. "Do you always rise at this hour?" he inquired, standing beneath the window. Smile graced my lips. "It is only when there exists a purpose that stirs the soul to rise with the dawn." His pause sent a flutter through my stomach. "Is there perhaps?" Found myself outside, my bare feet meeting the cool ground unexpectedly. Yet I did. The stone felt warm underfoot as I trailed the sound of his rake. The crunch of last year's leaves echoing in air. He knelt low, carefully attending to the perimeter of the garden. His shirt clung to him, damp and heavy. His skin shimmered with a golden hue. Upon catching sight of me, he rose to his feet. He remained silent for a moment. I just took a glance. Then he inquired, "Do you find yourself feeling isolated?" My throat constricted. It had been years since anyone had posed that question to me. Not in a direct manner. Not with genuine intent. And the manner in which he inquired, it lacked any trace of pity. It was not concern. It was an insatiable curiosity. It was an observation. Indeed, I replied. Uncomplicated, authentic, complete. He remained unyielding, did not acknowledge. With a nod, just remained there, allowing the answer to linger in the air between us, as if caught in a moment of suspended breath. He extended to me a pair of gloves. "Could you assist me with the ivy? It inches closer to the pathway." Years had passed since I last tended to a garden, yet I found myself agreeing. We toiled together in quietude. The fleeting touch of our arms resonated more profoundly than any spoken phrase. Each time I lifted my gaze, I found him already observing me. At one moment, I found myself resting on my heels, perspiration adhering to my temples. "You ought to head indoors," he remarked. "Why? If you remain out here, I may act in a way that I cannot undo." Remained still. "Not at this moment." My gaze fell upon him, gazed at his hands, at the soil lodged beneath his nails, the gash on his thumb, the contour of his collarbone barely discernible through the gap in his shirt. In that moment I rose to my feet and stepped back into the interior. Yet it wasn't out of fear of him, for fear of the request I might place before him. Through the pain I observed him collect his instruments. As he cast a glance over his shoulder, I did not faint. Indifference. With the dawn's first light I stirred from my slumber. It is still too soon. The sun had yet to grace the window with its light. The dwelling retained the lingering chill of the wake. I rose regardless, cinched my robe more snugly, brewed my coffee and settled in to wait. 7:15, silence. 7:40, silence lingers. At 8 o'clock I found myself pacing. The gate remained closed. Silence envelopes the gravel, untouched by footsteps. Silence reigns devoid of the trimmer's hum. Not a single shadow graces the lawn. Only tranquility. My stomach churned. I convinced myself that he was occupied with another job yet. Another dwelling. I was being utterly absurd. Yet, as the clock struck 9 o'clock, I found myself seated in the car. Found myself adrift, uncertain of my destination. A memory surfaced from our conversation the previous week. He had mentioned a nearby nursery renowned for its exquisite jasmine. I made my way there by car. He was not. I inquired of the young woman at the counter whether she was familiar with a gardener by the name of Marco. Her smile came too readily. Marco Rivera, lofty, reserved. Indeed, he occasionally purchases soil from us. What is the reason behind this? I remained silent. I departed, traversed the neighborhood, passed by the other houses he cared for. He searched for his truck, his form, the blue cap he perpetually donned. Silence. Veins. By the time the clock struck noon, I found myself back within the familiar walls of my home. Yet he remained unchanged. That afternoon I lingered by the window more than I typically would, long enough for the sun to change its position, prolonged to the point of feeling absurd. 3:12 I surrendered, drawn the curtains shut, entered the bedroom, reclined, draped in my robe, lingering in a state of an unnamed something that eluded my grasp. Could it have been rejection, regret, or perhaps something more profound, an ache of unfulfilled longing? 5:47 it reached my ears. The side gate emitted a Soft creak. Then came the footsteps. Then his voice, whispering gently with a hint of trepidation. Lane. I remained silent. I descended the hallway with deliberate slowness, my feet bare against the cool floor once more. Door creaked open beneath my touch. He lingered, his shirt clinging to him with perspiration, hat grasped tightly, gaze probing the surroundings. I apologize, he uttered. My truck refused to awaken from its slumber. I found myself without your number. Relief washed over me and I felt the urge to weep. Yet I refrained. Instead I inquired, will you be joining us inside? He cast his gaze upon me, then beyond into the living room, a realm he had yet to traverse. He gave a slight nod. You grant me permission. I moved to the gate. In that moment he stepped beyond the threshold, not interested in the house, yet transformed into something altogether different. He entered as if he were meant to be there, not as if one were merely passing through, as if one were revisiting a cherished memory. Marco lingered in the doorway, pausing, as though seeking an unspoken invitation. Exhale. He made his way to the couch, the very one I claimed during his morning spent in the yard, and settled himself down with deliberate slowness. The door clicked shut behind me. Silence enveloped everything, a heavy stillness that lingered in the air. Found myself positioned opposite him. Silence enveloped us. Last, he remarked, I never expected you to wait. I never expected to see you here. He smiled, weary, yet holding a hint of something more, something unrefined. Strolled over. I took a seat next to him, near, untouched, yet the distance that separated us throbbed with intensity. You ought not to be here, I remarked. I understand, yet I find myself wishing you would stay. He pivoted his gaze. In that case, please refrain from requesting it. He extended his hand toward mine. I allowed him to proceed. It was not yet a kiss. Fingers intertwined, a warm and intentional connection. His thumb glided over the back of my hand, a whisper of intimacy. I cast my gaze downward, hesitant to meet his eyes. Do you believe I am naive? I inquired. No, he replied. It seems to me that you are in need of nourishment. The words struck me deep in the heart, for the reason that they were indeed genuine. Deep hunger gnawed at me, not intended for consumption, not for intimacy, for an alternative, something more subdued, increasingly perilous to be observed, caressed softly, kept in suspense, never inquired about the hour when dinner would grace the table. I inclined my body forward. He encountered me at the midpoint. The kiss was not hurried. Certainly wasn't sluggish either. It was essential, the kind that reveals the essence without fracturing it. His hands traced the contours of my waist, caressed my face, and tangled in my hair. I discovered a rhythm to my breath that felt foreign, as if I hadn't inhaled deeply in ages. Our journey never led us to the bedroom.